evening and welcome to the City of Woodstock Public Planning Meeting. Tonight's meeting is an open public meeting as required by the Planning Act. This meeting will be live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of the meeting will also be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. This meeting is for information and discussion purposes only, and no decisions will be made this evening. Council will make a decision on these matters at the regular council meeting to be held this Thursday. If you wish to address council at the meeting, you must submit a delegation form to the city clerk no later than 2 p.m. on Wednesday. A delegation form is available on the city's website. Appeals only. The applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter may, within 20 days of council's decision, file an appeal with the Ontario Land Tribunal. Please keep your comments to planning matters only and avoid repeating comments that have already been expressed. If you have not provided oral or written comments but wish to receive formal notice of council's decision on the matter, please contact the clerk's department. The notice will provide further information on appealing the decision. The planner will be asked to present the planning report for each application. The applicant will then be provided an opportunity to make comments, followed by those wishing to speak in favor of the application, and then followed by those wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Prior to the proceedings with the first application, does anyone wish to declare a pecuniary interest on any of the items that are on tonight's agenda? Councillor Leatherborough.
I, Councillor Kate Leatherborough, declare the following potential direct pecuniary interest, planning item number 2A, subject matter Zen N 8-23-13, application for zone change, Anjoka Holdings Inc., 815 Juliana Drive. And the general nature, I own and operate a business in the immediate vicinity of the subject property.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll proceed with the first application. The first application is ZN 8-23-13, an application for zone change at 815 Juliana Drive. I'll ask our planner, Mr. Miller, to proceed with this application.
Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. As the councilors introduced, this application ZN 8-23-13, the name of Anjoka Holdings Inc. The subject lands are described as Lot 8, Plan 1654, Part 2, 41R 2336 in the city of Woodstock. The lands are located on the north side of Juliana Drive between Norwich Avenue and Montclair Drive and are municipally known as 815 Juliana Drive. The subject lands are designated regional commercial node in the City of Woodstock land use plan and the county's official plan. The subject lands are currently zoned general industrial, and the proposed zoning is regional commercial, which is a C6 zone. The lands to be rezoned are approximately 2,371 square meters in area and contain a 3-unit commercial development. The applicants are proposing to rezone the lands from general industrial to regional commercial with the view of attracting a new commercial tenants to a vacant commercial unit within the existing structure. I know that Angela, who is the applicant and owner of Anjoka Holdings, had a commercial tenant in mind. I believe that that tenant is partially or completely moved in now. But the point is to get commercial business license with an industrial zoning was difficult. The zone change application proposes to rezone subject lands to regional commercial to better facilitate the use of lands for commercial purposes. As the proposal will promote the efficient use of existing infrastructure, a mix and range of employment uses and diverse economic base, planning staff are satisfied that the zoning amendment is consistent with the policies of the PPS respecting employment uses within designated settlement areas. In accordance with the policies of the official plan, it is intended that individual uses may be permitted on the sites within the norm. Again. It was just the baby's first week of daycare, so she made me sick. Within the Norwich Juliana Regional Commercial Node through site-specific zoning. While a site-specific official plan amendment subject to preparation of retail market studies typically required to facilitate the development in excess of 20,000 square feet, the existing building doesn't exceed that, being less than 25,000 square feet and wouldn't lend itself to the threshold of the property. So market study is not required in this case. As such, planning staff are of the opinion that rezoning the subject lands to permit the full range of C6 uses is appropriate and no further market review is required. In light of the foregoing, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposal to rezone the subject lands to regional commercial node to permit the lands for a full range of uses allowed in that zone is consistent with the relevant policies of PPS and maintains the intended purpose of the official plan, and planning staff recommend approval of the application.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council through to our planner? Seeing none. Is the applicant here, and would the applicant like to come forward and speak? Not? Okay, we'll just move on then to the next delegation, the next item. So it's ZN 8-23-11, application for zone change. I'm sorry, I did miss that. Is on the previous application, is there anyone in favor of the application? Is there anyone against the application? Thank you. We'll go ahead and proceed. And this is application ZN 8-23-11, application for zone change, 695 Hayball Street. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
ZN 8-23-11, in the name of Kristen Sawatsky and Cornelius Sawatsky. The subject lands are described as Plan 427, Part Lot 9 in the city of Woodstock. The property is located on the north side of Hayball Street, west of Huron Street, and is municipally known as 695 Huron Street, or Hayball Street. The subject lands are designated residential and specifically low density residential in the city of Woodstock residential density plan in the county's official plan. The existing zone is R1, which permits single detached dwellings, and the proposed zoning is a special R2 zone, which permits single detached dwellings as well as semi-detached dwellings, duplexes. The application for zone change proposes to rezone the subject lands from residential zone 1 to residential zone 2 special R241 to facilitate the construction of a duplex on the subject lands. Through the review process, the requirement to implement site-specific zoning should reduce the minimum required lot area for a duplex from 540 square meters to 370 square meters, and to reduce the minimum frontage for a duplex from 18 meters to 12 meters was identified. So the R2 zoning has smaller lot provisions where you're creating single detached dwelling or where you're creating a semi-detached dwelling unit, but for the duplex, the zone provisions are slightly higher than they are for those other types of structures. Planning staff are satisfied that the proposal meets the intent of the PPS and the official plan. While the proposal will introduce an alternative housing type into an existing residential neighborhood consisting predominantly of single detached dwellings, the duplex will be similar size to the existing dwellings and will utilize the existing lot fabric. As such, staff are of the opinion that the development will not negatively impact the character of the neighborhood from a built form perspective. Further, based on the submitted sketch, staff are satisfied that parking in accordance with the requirements of the zoning bylaw can also be accommodated on the site, and the additional dwelling unit is not anticipated to have an adverse impact on traffic in the area. The subject property meets the relevant provisions of the R2 zone, with the exception of the lot frontage and lot area, which are existing from the lot fabric of the area. It's not newly created through a severance. That's the size of the lot. It's not something that can be changed. Staff are satisfied that the request is supportable, as the reduced frontage and area will not affect the ability of the property to provide adequate setbacks, parking, drainage, grading, landscape, open space, or private amenity area, as shown on the sketch submitted by the applicant in plate 3. Building staff have identified grading as a potential issue, and a grading plan will be required prior to the issuance of a building permit. So prior to a building permit being issued for the structure, the building department will require a drainage plan to make sure that neighbors are not adversely impacted by the grading and new development of the site. 2 neighbor emails were submitted, and they're attached in the report in opposition to the proposal. In light of the foregoing, planning staff are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement, meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan, and as such are of the opinion that the application can be given a favorable consideration, and planning staff recommend approval of the application.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Schattenberg?
Yeah, from the chair through to Mr. Miller, I guess the only question would be, is the proposed new duplex, that would obviously be an up and down duplex, and it is not being built in front of any of the existing homes on the street by looking at the applicant's sketch, plate number 3. In other words, the frontages are all parallel to the road. No one's losing their view. I noticed the one person wrote a letter that said the previous owner had been there for a long time, and they always had a nice garden in the front yard, and that would now be gone. Well, in theory, the new people could put in a nice garden too, and the front yard is not smaller than it was before.
Through the chair, that's correct. I did provide responses to the emails that we received. But essentially, I believe that the existing street line of the houses is closer than the 6-meter setback. So the new structure won't be in front of the houses at all. If anything, it's likely to be set back a little further.
Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Through the chair to Mr. Miller, has there been a submission of what the duplex is going to look like? Or, I mean, other than just what was kind of drawn out here on plate 3 of just kind of the measurements and the tandem parking? I really have a hard time envisioning what a duplex looks like in that lot exactly, and how it doesn't look out of place or oversized.
So through the chair, what's included there is what I've got. I don't have any detailed floor plans saying that the heighting in the zone provisions, which they've been requested exemptions from, are essentially the same. And Craig from the building department can correct me if I'm wrong, between the R1 and the R2 zone. So it's not that you could build a taller structure or a bigger structure than you could in the R1 zone. Actually, if you tore down the house and kept it the R1 zone, you could build a bigger structure than this, because the side yard setbacks are smaller in the R1 zone than they are in the R2 zone. So theoretically, you could, in the R1 zone, you could build a bigger structure than what's being requested in the R2 zone.
Are there any other questions? Mayor Accioni?
Thank you, through the chair to Mr. Miller. Yeah, I guess that's where my head was just going with this right now. With the current zoning, could they not physically put a bigger building there than even what's being proposed?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. For duplexes, I believe the R2 zone requires 3 meter side yards on either side, whereas the R1 zone requires 1.2 meter side yards if there's an attached garage. So theoretically, the front yard and not theoretically, the front yard and the rear yard setbacks are the same. The side yard setbacks are reduced further. So in the R1 zone, you could theoretically build a bigger structure than you can in the R2 zone.
If I could continue? Yeah, thank you. So with that line of thinking, with the new ARUs and everything else that's coming into play, literally could have and I'm thinking for the neighborhood wise, there could be a bigger house under an R1 zoning, but with an additional residential unit put in the basement and virtually nothing we can do about it.
Through the chair, essentially, I believe because in this case, there's still likely in the ARU zone provisions, I think are coming back on Thursday. This would still be under the minimum lot area for that, so they would still need a minor variance. But yes, it would likely be supported by staff again. Or it would be.
Okay, no, thank you.
Mr. Wallace, did you want to speak to that?
Madam Chair, just to pick up a point, if the ARUs were approved as per the proposed bylaw for Thursday night, they'll be permitted in the R1 zone. So a new house, a new single detached house could be built there, and an ARU could be built or added into the part of that house just through a building permit. Minor variance, wouldn't it be required to put an ARU within the house?
Are there any other questions through to the planner? Councillor Schadenberg?
Maybe this goes back to what Councillor Wismer Van Meer was suggesting. Maybe it's a question for Craig Wallace from our building department more than anything else. It is possible that the front door for where the parking lots are for the east side could be at the door could be the main door could be at the side door for both of these units. And in fact, it could be in theory no front door that or the flip side could happen. There could be two front doors of this building where one serves the main floor and one serves the second floor. And the reason I'm saying it goes back to what Councillor Van Meer, I just think it's the flavor of the street, right? Where you drive down the street and all of a sudden you go, well, that house has no front doors because there's two side doors on it. Is there any provisions allowed for that in the building code to insist on having at least one front door? Aesthetic purposes?
Madam Chair, to answer the question, no, there is no, we do not have a provision in any of our bylaws or the building code that says a door has to be on the front wall of the house.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, would the applicant be in the room? Go ahead, we have your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mark Burke. I represent Cornelius and Kristen Sawatsky in this application, and I can answer, hopefully, to my best of my ability, some of the questions that you've asked, or at least speak to them and add some context. I would, first and foremost, I really do want to acknowledge Mr. Earl, and I believe McGorman's, maybe, neighbors' concerns or anxieties over any changes in their neighborhood. It's valid. I had a duplex built in my backyard last year and I felt the same thing. And it's just the unknown of not knowing exactly what the finished product is going to look like. Just brings out some natural anxiety. And just in conversation with Mr. Earl, some concerns that he had that'll be dealt with by the building department. So I just want to acknowledge that that's a very normal and valid anxiety. The other thing that kind of doesn't get seen here is that Cornelius and Kristen have actually considered and contemplated a lot of the issues that you've discussed around the suitability for the neighborhood. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Number one, they want to be good neighbors. So that's number one. That's not always the case, but in this case, it certainly is. Number two, suitability for the neighborhood brings about value for the neighborhood and brings about value for the home. The last thing you want is a home that does not fit well in the neighborhood. And that doesn't work well for the home that you're building or the neighbors that are there as well. So certainly in a sense, there's kind of a self-fulfilling consideration that somebody that's doing this kind of development and putting forward a lot of capital is going to make a decision that is good for them and that is good for the neighborhood. And the good news is that this is a win-win. In this circumstance, the conformity is good for both parties. It's good for the neighborhood and it's good for the homeowner. The other thing that I want to reassure is that this is a very elegant plan. It is going to fit almost exactly where the current home sits. And unfortunately, we wanted to save the current home and they got kind of into the process and it was literally disintegrating. So that certainly very quickly became not an option to save the current home. A lot of these cute little wartime homes that are great homes, but just the construction, they didn't have full basements. There was a lot of dry rot and things like that that happened. So the contemplation of this plan was to have something that would conform with the neighborhood. It fits almost exactly where the footprint of the existing home is. It's a little bit off, but very, very close. So it would preserve, and the gardens are lovely. It is actually a very nice property. So in doing this is part of their contemplation, is that they're going to preserve the property. They're going to preserve the green space that is there for them and for the neighbors. Because again, the two people that will end up being, or the two families that will end up living in this home, that's something that they will enjoy and benefit. And that actually makes the home more marketable as a rental unit as well. So these are all things that kind of work together for the good. And to answer the question, the front elevation, so this will look like, it'll be roughly the same size as those 1.5-story homes in height, because it's going to be like a raised ranch style. We've built this as a larger building, as a 4-plex and as a 6-plex, but we just shave it down to a duplex. There's 770 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-floor plans. And this is what I absolutely love about this kind of project, is they're very geared towards seniors. And that's very strategic for a couple of reasons. As a property owner that is renting out properties, God bless seniors. They are just fantastic people. They take good care of their home. They take good care of their gardens. They're homeowners that are making that next step down. They're homeowners that we built a similar plan. And a good friend of mine, his mom is occupying one, and another good friend, her mom is occupying another one. They're both seniors that couldn't care for their homes and had to sell. And these are great units and alternatives to high-rise apartment buildings. So they have 2 bedrooms. They're very simple 1-floor plan. It's a raised ranch, so the lower level is down 5 steps and has full windows, and the upper level is only 7 steps up. So it's still manageable for kind of what we call a rolling retiree kind of perspective. So I think that, and I wish I did have brought photos. I do have a photo of and maybe I can provide that, of the front elevation. It's just very simple. It have 2 entrances with a covered entryway, and it would fit very nicely down the streetscape. So I do completely understand the neighbors' concerns, because I think those anxieties are very normal and natural when you don't see the finished product. But I think at the end of this will be a very elegant building that will fit, and it's going to provide 2 really nice units for seniors in our community. So any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Van, I can always get this wrong. Wismer Van Meer, I'm sorry.
No problem. Through the chair, to Mr. Burke, if you could provide a photo, just, for curiosity's sake, I wouldn't mind seeing what it's going to look like. Wow, there goes that thought right out that window. If it comes back to me, if not, I will catch up with you later. But yeah, if you have photos, that would be fantastic.
Yep, for sure.
Councillor Leatherbrook.
Through the chair to Mr. Burke, thanks very much for coming tonight. And you mentioned so there'll be rentals, is that my understanding?
correct.
Yeah, for seniors,
They're.
or that's your market that
We
you're,
usually end up, like the majority of them are rented by seniors. I would say the second most represented group would be single women, would be that there's some element of security and it's the right size. So that would probably be the second most represented group, yeah.
Council, Mayor Accioni?
Thank you, through the chair to Mr. Burke. Again, I'm going to assume here, I guess it was touched on by Councillor Leatherborough, that there is no guarantees, of course, who the tenants are going to be. But I guess you mentioned 750 square foot would definitely limit the families or, you know, the amount of people you can have there. There's a huge need. There's no secret. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that. And I'm really interested to look at those photos as well, because
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited with this kind of plan. I think could be suited in more neighborhoods. And probably something we can share with the neighbors as well, so they feel that comfort. So thank you.
Yeah, very good. We have some similar units we've built that we can share kind of the 3D plans as well. Yeah, it's very elegant. And like you said, we can't guarantee that it would be a senior, but that in a sense is the intent and the focus. And that typically ends up guiding the outcome. Just in terms of total volume, it's usually a single person or a couple. That's, I mean, there's one good sized bedroom. The second bedroom is like the grandkids come to sleep over. It's about that size. The second bedroom just really isn't. So you wouldn't want to put 3 people in one of these units because it's just not big enough for that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone in the audience that is approves this in approval of this application? Is there anyone in the audience who is in opposition to this application? Okay, would you like to come forward, sir? And could we please have your name and address, please?
Council, my name is Michael Earl. I live next door to the proposed zoning property change on the corner, 699. But like on Huron and Hayball, my detached garage is at the back of my property, butts up to the property that they want to the zoning for. I have several questions and concerns. I lived there now for 18 years. And I had a lot of problems when I first moved there with the drainage, and we have fixed that. I have not had any water in my basement for a very long time. And that building that they want to tear down and build a duplex on has no basement, right? It's just nothing, just crawl spaces. Now they dig, and they did that on Catherine Street, which is 1 block over on the corner. And they got water in the neighbor's basement. I do not want to fix the basement again, right? Like, I mean, I can complain, I can say, well, the city's going to fix it. Well, the city's not going to fix it. The builder, they're not going to fix it. I got to fix it. It's quite expensive to fix and dig up a basement and repair it once it's leaking. That's one concern that I have. The drainage is not bad now. We don't have any problem with it, but there is still water in the spring that sits in the back of that lot towards the fence and be behind my garage. It drains away now. We don't have any problem. But I'm afraid when they dig that hole, that they're going to disturb the soil. There's 1.5 meters from the property line to my basement wall, right? That's not a lot when you're digging with a big hole. And I'm afraid something might happen. It may not, but I mean, I cannot take the chance of that happening because I have to foot the bill for it. When you're a senior on a fixed income, that's expensive, okay? As far as I'm concerned about what they want to build there, I believe the lot is too small. Because if they give me the variances on either side, right, that leaves about 30 feet, right? They build a 14-foot wide duplex together, that's 28 feet. Doesn't leave a lot of air or a place for air, right? And as for the backyard, where it is now, there's some very nice mature maple trees back there that overhang nearly 50% of that lot. If they build a 2-story house there, they may have to cut them trees back or down. The lady that lived there before me, who is deceased now, we got along very well with. And she had a garden in the back that had awards for what she grew. She grew flowers in the spring, summertime, more flowers grew up, fall, more flowers grew up. So the whole year, just nothing but a bouquet of flowers back there. It's a little rough now because nobody looked after it for a couple of years, but that's the way the garden was. She asked me to take the trees down that were along the side of the property so she could have more sun on her garden. So I did that. And then doing that, she'd help pay for a new fence. So I cut the fence out in between, cut all the trees down. And then I pulled the fence posts out and put the other ones right back in where the old one was. Now, I'm not so sure that that fence is in the same place, like on the property line, okay? It was all intertwined amongst the trees that I cut down, but it was there for a very, very long time. So I'm hoping that's not gonna have to change and have to move. And my wife and I like to sit in the backyard in the summer and hot tub, right? Right now it's put away, but it's then on the summertime. So when a duplex is built there, they have 2-story duplex, right, or story and a half, whatever, have windows. So they look down over into my property and I have no privacy anymore. All I get is people staring out of the windows at my wife and I in my hot tub. That I can't have. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that if it gets built. And for loss of privacy. For next, another concern I have is when they build that monstrosity there, it changes the entire dynamics of the neighborhood. All those houses are small, single-family dwellings. My house is 950 square feet. The two beside it is only, and three beside it are only 900. They're very small. They're smaller than my house is, right? The neighbor in the back, which is straight behind the proposed property, he's gonna look at a back wall of a duplex. Instead of the nice overhanging trees in the garden, that's all it's gonna be there, for as far as he's concerned. I canvassed all my neighbors, and my neighbors say the same thing. They don't want it there because it's not suited for that neighborhood. A story and a half house, no problem. But a duplex, no. Because secondly, as you know, you don't know who's gonna live there. And it could be for seniors, it could be for single mothers, like the gentleman says. But what if it's not? What if it's bigger than what they say? You know, it's not that I'm afraid. It's just that I lose my privacy. I don't know what's gonna happen with the soil when they take the tests and if something happens, leaks my basement again. And thirdly, some trees are very nice in there. They overhang beautiful. She's made it very nice over there, and they're gonna, more than likely, some of them will be trimmed back because you can't put your building there and have the trees sitting on your roof because they hang down quite nicely. And as far as the retail value of my house, I expect that to fall because once you put those houses there, the retail value around your houses, they fall because people don't want to live near them in their houses. Right now, my house is nearly paid for. I still have some, but I mean, I've done well paying that off. I'd like to get out of it what I should get out of it. And if that thing is built there, I'm quite sure that the property going to drop about 20%. And I'm not happy with that. So as far as the zoning says right now for the lot coverage, a duplex, you need to have 40% of the lot area is all they can have covered. Well, they build that house, it'd be less than 40%. You're gonna be more than that. And you're gonna lose in the back. You're gonna, in the front, for a driveway in the front, I mean, there's not a lot of room there for a driveway in the front, unless you set the duplex back and give you a decent length of a driveway. You know, I don't know how they figured that they can do that because as far as the variant or the variant between my house and the other house, you know, the space, they're gonna be less than it is now, and it isn't a lot. I would not wanna see the duplex hanging over the fence. I've seen that before, where they build the top half over, and then it's underneath just at the edge of the property line, but you still got your variance to the foundation, sure, but not else. I don't know what kind of house is gonna be built there. I haven't seen anything at all. I haven't seen how big it's gonna be, nothing. And right now I can only go by what's there. The lot's about 42 feet wide, so approximately. 30 feet of that's gonna be taken up for the duplex when it gets built in the width. That leaves, you know, only 12 feet to cut for both sides. Like the neighbor on the other side, he's not happy neither. He's so unhappy, he built a great big 6.5 foot privacy fence because he wasn't gonna put up with it tall. The guy and behind the neighbor behind in the very back, he's not happy because he has a nice view of the greenery in the backyards and then the neighborhoods. That'll all disappear. It won't be there anymore. And that's half the, would you sit out on a nice summer afternoon or evening outside, look at all the birds and animals running around in the trees and whatever, that's gonna disappear or be cut back. And myself personally, I don't want that thing built there. I mean, like I said, it changes the whole dynamic of the neighborhood. There isn't any 2-story buildings on Hayball Street all the way down the street. There's a 1.5 stories on the other side of the street, but none like that. And I really, in closing, I'm really against having it there because there's too many variables and things that can be changed that I can't fix. And I don't really want that thing there because my neighborhood is a nice, quiet neighborhood. And it's not gonna be if those things, the next thing you know, 2 doors down, they'll build another one, and then another one. And then what happens? Turns into a duplex road. And I don't really like to have that. Thank you.
Are there any questions through Council or Mayor Accioni?
Yeah, thank you through the chair to Mr. Earl, if I may.
Sure.
Michael. Yeah, I've just pulled it up here on my computer, so I'm just trying to get the height. I drove by the site earlier today, and correct me if I'm wrong, your building is a fair bit higher. So I'm assuming the elevation,
Yeah, I live on the hill.
right? Yeah, you're at the top of the hill.
Yes.
So when I drove by, honestly, I was thinking it would probably be around the same height as your house
Well, I think it's a little
being
bit
and
taller.
it may be. I'm
If you
that's why
go
I'm
over
asking.
to, what's that street? Well, South Street, they got a duplex over there that they're building.
That's a full 2-story. Yeah,
two-story?
it's a full 2-story.
And they over on, where the car wash is, that street that goes around, I forget the name of the street,
Yeah.
Nelson Street.
Yeah.
They got one over there that's a 1.5 stories.
Yeah.
Go have a look at that one and you'll
Sure.
find it's much bigger than mine.
Well, I think
My
that's
house.
why council is asked to see this 1.5-story version that
Hmm.
the applicant was talking about. Mr. Burke was talking about.
Hmm.
I'm quite interested.
Like, I have
as
no
well,
problem
'cause-
with them people building a 1.5 stories house there,
Yeah.
none whatsoever. I just
Yeah.
don't wanna see the duplex there, that's all. He wants to buy my property and then I'll leave, no problem. But until I get what that done, no.
And I guess one other comment, if I may, through the chair. Because of the footprint's gonna be almost exact where it is and you being higher up, then I gotta think when they do, disturb the soil, as I think you referred to it, there shouldn't be any major concerns with water changing and everything else, because you are up higher than
But
everyone else, correct?
behind my garage, okay, at the back,
Yeah,
is higher yet.
Yeah.
And it runs down between our houses.
okay, yeah, I
When
didn't
I
go in the
first-
backyard.
When I
but-
first came there, it ran right down through and I had to dig it up.
so
Now I
that's why.
have big O on my downspouts to trail water away from the house down out to the street. And by digging it up and fixing it and then doing this, I have no water in my basement anymore.
Yeah.
I don't wanna have any.
You have a full basement then, I
Yes,
assume?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Are there any other questions? Councillor Leatherborough?
Through the chair to the delegation, thanks very much for coming tonight and sharing your thoughts. I was just wondering to Mr. Miller about the tree removal policy. It's 3-1, I believe, but just for your information, I actually live on Wellington Street North, so we're practically neighbors.
Yep.
My kids go to Northdale. We did trick or treat on your street not long ago.
Okay.
But to that point, there's lots of development that is planned and approved, stamped and ready to happen at the old Woodstock Hospital site, and there are mature trees that have been saved. So in addition to my tree policy question, reminder, brush up, no pun intended, but obviously some projects do their very best to also maintain the maturity of the neighborhood and the trees and things like that. So I was just wondering if you could speak to that. Mr. Miller, thanks. Through Craig's, thanks.
Madam Chair, through to the question, the city's tree bylaw doesn't pertain to small residential lots. it's multifamily, commercial, not this type of lot. So on any residential lot, the homeowner is allowed to cut down a tree on their lot.
So I guess further to that, do you have any insight on, well, I don't know if we have much control of that, but just any feedback on projects like this, trying to maintain matured trees like these that he's addressing or asking about?
Madam Chair, through to your question, so if the tree was located within the envelope of the house, obviously the tree has to be removed from the site. If the tree is in the backyard, the tree should be able to stay.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Schadenberg?
Certainly not a question, just a statement. I'm not sure if the delegation understands, and I'm sure the developer would be willing to confirm this for him, that the proposed building is only going to be 2 levels. You go down a few steps to, if you want to call it the basement, you can call it that, 5 steps down to the basement, and then 7 steps up to the main floor. That's it. There's no 3rd floor to this structure that's planned. So if anything, it might even be shorter than your house, or shorter than the house further west. And I know we don't have a drawing of it, but I'm sure the agent for the developer or the family that wants to do this building would confirm that fact.
Mr. Burke, would you be able to have any idea of the proposed height of the building? If you would like to come up, please. Would you like to come up, please?
Yeah, so we've built similar homes to this, and if you think about 7 steps up and then a full story, right? So that essentially is a story and a half, is really what it comes down to. And the roof pitch is moderate. It's not a super high pitched roof just because of the design. So I would say that it would be very, very consistent with a story and a halves, potentially even shorter than what is along that part of the street.
Okay, thank you. Was there any other questions anyone had for Mr. Earl? Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Would you like to come forward, please, and give your name and address, please?
Hello, I'm Gerald Mueller. I live at 666 Hayball, which is at the extreme west end of Hayball Street. We've lived there 32 years. And I'm aware of high density housing. I'm really supportive of high density housing, anything that not have urban sprawl. But I'm also against greedy land developers. It doesn't matter if it's urban or rural. And the law might be passed now, but I know in Vancouver, they're enacting this law that if you have a single dwelling lot, you can now put a 2-plex, triplex, or 4-plex on it. So we know change is coming. And also it got turned down by, this is where citizens can protest, but also it was on today in the radio. There's some 2-lane roads in Vancouver that the extreme right lane is only for parking. And there was a person talking about how he could go 20 blocks and there wasn't a single parking lot or a vehicle being parked. So the city was getting this brainwave. Well, since we already own part of people's front lots, and these are all boulevards, we can start, let's build housing units in front of these houses. It got all turned down. So anyways, if you go 1 block north of us on Elizabeth Street at 675, there was a new single family dwelling put in 2 years ago. They tore down one of these little wartime homes. And it's a nice house. It does take away the whole aesthetics of the street. And it does stick out. And I don't want to say it's an eyesore because it's a nice built house. But when I look at our street, which is really narrow, and it's kind of proud to live on Hayball Street again, because for a while, the people that were moving into wartime homes were the people that just didn't have a lot of money or they rented them out. And then with the housing crisis we had new time buyers buying them because that's all they could afford. So they fixed it up and we got a really nice street again. And when I see that Mrs. Pye, she had a really lovely place. And if someone was going to tear it down and put a single dwelling home in it, I wouldn't be really upset. But once you start looking at a duplex, I'm thinking that's really taking the look of a neighborhood. But you're going to have all these damn crooked developers that are only thinking about cash. And if we go ahead with that duplex, they're going to say, hey, we can start doing triplexes and fourplexes. And let's start approaching these people in these homes in Elizabeth Street and Hayball Street. Let's see if we can get them to sell. And they'll just demolish the house and they're going to change the whole makeup of that area.
Councillor Schadenberg, do you have any questions? Okay, sorry. I think that we're getting a little bit off the planning of.
That's only
the
because that's
application.
why I'm kind of concerned. I had to bring up all those other housing issues.
Is there anything else that you did want to say regarding the application
Well,
itself?
It's like my neighbor spoke up. Mrs. Pye had a 1-car parking lot. You put another family in there, and if you go down our street, almost every household has 2 vehicles. So all of a sudden, there's going to be a spot that never had a car, only when she had company. There's potentially 4 more vehicles. It's not a wide street we live on.
Yeah, we are getting into a lot of this with now the new rule. We have the rule coming and it's going to be dealing with again on Thursday night, the additional residential units that can be put into single family dwellings. And this is complications that are arising, and we have spoken of this. We had a special meeting the other day to dealing with parking and all the issues that this can have. And we are going to be seeing a lot more of this in the city, whether we like it or not, because it is something that the Ford government has asked us to do or told us to do. So, I think that this is the way of the future, whether we like it or not. But anyhow, is there anyone else that would like to speak to or ask any questions on this application to the? Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming forward. Thank you. So there'll be that, I think that's the end of our applications for this evening, and there's no action is going to be taken at this meeting. Both applications will come forward at our council meeting on Thursday, and I'll call for an adjournment. Councillor Martin and Mayor Gioni, all in favor? Thank you.